quieter at this end.
Cool, me too, yeah. Right, Brian, that's us live, mate. So for anybody that doesn't know Brian of London, I'm going to give you a bit of background about Brian. I've known about him for a long, long time, and we got in touch, what I suppose, about 5-6 years ago. Whenever.
Yeah, it's been a while.
Back in the mist of time. But Tommy, I think I'm right in saying, Brian, you with Tommy from the beginning. You were one of the first guys.
I was a bizarre. The origin story is I left the UK around 2009. That was about when the EDL started up.
Yeah.
Some friends of mine who I'd been doing counter jihad things. That's the best way to describe it. I was very focused on jihad and the takeover by Islam. I left the UK, but these friends said, this EDL thing that's starting to get talked about, it's not what you think. It's not the BNP. It's not the National Front. It's not Combat 18. I knew who all those guys were. I grew up in Ealing, and Brentford was next door, and Brentford was like the home of every nasty. Yeah. So they said, look at the EDL. So I joined the forums, and I joined the forums as I said, I was Brian of London. I said I was in Israel. And what kept happening was that if I was given grief for being Jewish, they were booted, not me. And I was just a forum member, and I was reading all the stuff about the EDL marches, and I was reading stuff about the grooming gangs long before anybody, long before the Times, and nobody had heard this stuff. And I was reading first-hand accounts of fathers going looking for their daughters. And I got myself involved and started helping out behind the scenes. And one thing led to another. And eventually I was in touch with Tommy direct. And, it was also about the time that he went to prison for going to America, which was nuts. Because I knew he couldn't go to America. And the first time I knew he was in America was I see this picture with Pamela Geller and Robert Spencer, who were both my friends at the time and still are. And he's standing there with his cousin in New York wearing a New York Police Department T-shirt, standing next to Robert Spencer. And I'm like, how the hell did that happen? Because nobody with a criminal record is going to get a visa to enter America, especially when the previous year he'd actually got to America and then got deported. And I mean, a history of deporting from America is really hard to get over. Exactly. So there he was. Anyway, and he got back from that and he went to prison. And I think that was about the time that I was talking to him on the phone, just before that prison sentence and then after.
Well, that's it. I mean, you have these dialogues with Tommy, and then all of a sudden, he just gets locked up, and it just flows, doesn't it? You know what I mean?
I mean, we laugh, but you can hear from my accent. I don't come from a strata of society in the UK that goes to prison a lot. So I didn't, Tommy was a very different, and the whole EDL thing. And I've met so many people through that, and I'm still in touch with quite a few. I had an upper middle class education, went to a public school, which means a private school for the Americans. They don't understand that. But then suddenly I'm talking and learning about bits of, but I did university in Sheffield and Leeds. So, and now I think the parts of Leeds that I used to go through, I think Hare Hills, there were riots, part of the riots in after the Southport thing, or before this, there was some riots before. Yeah, it was before. They were in Hare Hills, right?
Yeah, it was it was Romas and Pakistanis basically joined together,
kicking off, and
the now deputy leader of the Green Party was very influential in quelling the riot. So what does that say about the deputy leader of the Green Party?
Yeah, he's got
the Green Party, for goodness sake.
I know, what's the Green Party? I mean, it doesn't make any sense. But so I used to drive through Hare Hills to get to Roundhay, but Britain's so different from what I remember it, and I could tell from. And the other thing I learned from those EDL forums, which was mind-shattering, was that I realized now that going on all around me when I was in Leeds, especially Leeds, I don't even want to know all of the stuff that was going on, but it was going on in areas I used to just walk through. And I realize now that those places must have been just jihad, rape gangs galore everywhere. And it's terrifying actually, because it's all true. And like, we used to drive across the Pennines to Bradford to get a curry in a place called the Kashmir. I mean, God help me now if I were to set foot in Kashmir in Bradford.
What they put in your food, Brian. I mean, I've been with Tommy in curry houses when we were doing the Telford films. So Tommy loves a curry. So we're in this curry house, literally like 5 minutes away from where we're infiltrating these jihadi gangs, right? And the guy walks up with an iPhone in his top pocket with the camera facing. There's great surveillance techniques from these guys. You know what I mean? So he was filming us, and I'm like, I really don't want to eat this food. I really, but to be fair, it was one of the nicest curries I've had, and I wasn't ill. So whatever they poisoned with, it must be slow working. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, anyway, so that's how I got to know Tommy.
Yeah.
And then in 2016, he came here because he said, I want to see Israel. It's like, I've been talking about it. I've heard a lot about it, but I don't know anything about it. And one of the things that is unbelievably special about him is intellectual honesty. If he doesn't know something, he will say, I don't know. And if he doesn't know it, but he wants to know it, he will say, how can I learn that? And one of the ways he can learn is he can come here. Yeah. And so I brought him on that trip. And then now this trip that he's just had, he hit so many of the same places, which was quite funny. But he did a whole load more. And I think what I took from the trip, I wasn't with him all the time. I went on a couple of days. I went to Yad Vashem, the Holocaust Memorial Museum, which I didn't take him to the first time around. And like his video from that, I just want to say, I don't like dwelling on the Holocaust. It's not who we are. Like, that's the victim side. Okay. And Israel we didn't make Israel because of the Holocaust. Unfortunately, the Holocaust happened because we didn't have Israel. We were working on Israel for 100 years prior to, sort of waves of Zionist settlement, buying land here. All of that started in the mid 1800s. So it was well underway. The Holocaust was just, and unfortunately, the British keeping Jews out of Palestine. That's why we needed Israel, and that's why we fought about it, and we fought against the British and the Arabs to get it. And I'm not going to apologize for the sort of fight. We fought the British. Everyone fought the British.
Absolutely.
Look at the Irish.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, but this is the thing. And I mean, at the end of the day, from what I understand, the British basically shafted the Jews anyway. They made the Balfour Declaration, which, as far as I know, gave you kind of most of Jordan.
After the Balfour Declaration. Yeah. After the Balfour Declaration, it went all the way down here. Yeah. Winston Churchill gave Jordan, they made up this place called Jordan to give to a Hashemite king who hadn't had Saudi Arabia. And they okay, have Jordan. Jordan is everything east of the Jordan River. That was part of mandatory Palestine. And if there's all sorts of biblical events that happened in Jordan. I think bring me the head of John the Baptist. That's in Amman, basically. Now, okay, that means more to Christians, that particular bit. But why is that not Israel as well? Okay, I don't care. Nobody wants Jordan. It's like, have it, just stay there. But they could have called it Palestine, and it would have just taken the wind out of the sails of everybody. Yeah.
I mean, I think the other thing about this, Brian, and we should maybe do some more of these, because I think what is missing, I mean, obviously I'm from a Christian background. What's missing is real biblical education about actually why Israel really does belong to the Jews.
Tommy said an amazing thing. People, Tommy said an amazing thing in one of the interviews where that he said, because he started reading the Bible in prison, I think. That's right. And he read it, and he started understanding how much of Western civilization, the foundational stories of Western civilization, are all in the Bible, and stuff you had no clue about. It's all in the Bible. And when you drive around Israel, and this is the bit that blows your mind, if you have any reasonable Bible knowledge, every single road sign jumps off the screen at you. You look out the window, and if they've written it properly in English, which is not so easy, it's like every name you've heard of if you've read the Old Testament, and quite a lot of the New Testament too. because all the places that Jesus goes in his life, they're just towns and cities on road signs in Israel. That's what they are.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, which again, from I've never been. I'll have to come to Israel. I mean, it's on the bucket list. It's just, I've been busy, but as a Christian, I mean, you look at all this stuff, and you go, when you see stuff on the news, you're going, oh yeah, there's Jericho. Oh yeah, Jericho. That's Jericho. The walls came tumbling down. I mean, there's so much, and people. I think the problem is, Brian, most people, I'd say probably 90% of the British population is biblically illiterate. They don't know the old and they don't know the new.
But they're illiterate. But then when somebody somebody says, and the sayings and the whole of the English language is imbued with bits of biblical history. And if you start reading your Bible, you'll start seeing all of this.
Absolutely.
But anyway, Tommy went to Yad Vashem and he produced. And then the next day, I see he's done his video about it. By the way, the work rate of that guy and the work rate of his team is insane. It's like, because he, on that day, me and Tal, the tour guide who did a great interview with him, we joined at Yad Vashem, but we got there about 11 o'clock. But they went to a lookout point that's in the so-called West Bank. It's not the West Bank. It's Samaria, actually.
Judea and Samaria.
They went to Samaria to look out over Tel Aviv, and they had a whole load of interviews there. And then they went from there and they came to Yad Vashem, where we picked them up. From Yad Vashem, we went to the Knesset, the Parliament, where we sat with the Speaker of the Parliament, which is, again, I've not met him before. I'm in Ohana's office. That's the Speaker of the Knesset. That's the highest. That's the highest role in the Knesset. It's not like some junior MP nobody's heard of. This is the guy, and he's such an interesting guy. Oh God, there's so many stories. Anyway, from his video about the Holocaust Museum came out the next day. It was 1 minute 52 seconds, and I see that, and I'm thinking, we were there an hour and a half. How can you only say 1 minute 52 seconds, and then 20 seconds is going to be a promo at the end? It's like, how can you do a 1 minute video? It's the best video I've ever seen, because he summed it up. He got it. He kind of understood that the Nazi Holocaust didn't just happen with trains and death camps. It was the talking. It was the Jews are evil. Jews are the sons of apes and pigs. Jews are controlling the banks. It's all of the language that went up to it. And this museum makes it very clear of the stages of the process, and stages which I dare say, with all the lies that are told about Israel at the moment, we feel it again. The only difference this time is that, we're nuclear armed, perhaps nuclear armed, and pretty damn dangerous to get in a fight with. But that's the only difference. The demonization that's happening from the left and from Islam, it's bad to watch.
It's shocking. I've, when I come over to England, the guy I normally stay with, he's a Jewish guy, retired businessman. He was actually, can I say this without sort of, he was actually in a group called the Jewish Defence League in the 1970s. Yes. And they infiltrated the National Front and smashed the crap out of the National Front. So I'm not going to say his name, so no, it doesn't matter. But I mean, that's his background. Good, really, really solid lad, really good lad. And his family, his friends, everybody's going, we're getting out of here. We're either going to America or we're going to, and I'm going, hold on a minute. I don't want to lose you guys, all my Jewish friends. And I've got quite, I'm the way people say I've got Jewish, I actually have quite a few Jewish friends, it's just what it is, right? And I'm going to them, we don't want you guys to leave. We'd rather have Abdul, Mohammed, and Asif leave than you guys leave, because, I'm not really into
a civilizational canary. Yeah. When civilization, and this gets turned around the other way, so that the anti-Semites and stuff, they're 109 countries, you've been thrown out of 109 countries. Yeah, go look what happened to all 109 countries that threw out their Jews. Every one of them went to ruin. I mean, did Nazi Germany look great in 1945? Did Poland look? It is.
I don't know whether you're a Jewish believer or not, but like that is biblical. If you curse Israel,
yes,
I'm going to.
And that's the other thing is, Jews are Israel.
Keir Starmer's gone by Christmas.
I hope so. I mean,
because
then
he recognised Palestine.
Yeah, I don't know. Already we just don't like it. We in England, it's obvious. Look, I know that Tommy's trip was in the works long before the Yom Kippur and the stabbing, and then that tweet from even I must admit, when this minister of the diaspora, which Israelis really don't even know we have a minister of the diaspora, Jewish Israelis, not Anglo, sort of Hebrew speaking, they're very unworldly in understanding what's going on outside in the rest of the world. They don't kind of get it, and their news comes to them filtered through a kind of a left wing. It's like the right wing news is only concerned about Israel, and the only people giving them foreign news are kind of left wing because they're going to get them from AP and Reuters and Sky and BBC, and that's what filter. It's a mishmash here. So we don't even know we've got a diaspora. But then the guy tweets out the day after Yom Kippur and this horrible stabbing in Manchester that Tommy's coming on a visit, and my head exploded because I knew the visit was in the works, but I didn't expect it to be announced that way. And then, all the board of deputies and the official Jews, the ones that Tommy gets in trouble for criticizing, and because I tell him to bloody criticize them. I mean, it's like I give him as much license as he wants. They're awful.
And all the Jews I know can't stand them. And all the normal working class Jewish people I know are like, come on.
I would like to reach, and I must say, Tommy is very conciliatory. If they were to stop attacking him, that would be good. That he would take that as a win. He would take that as and I said this to him 15 years ago when the EDL started, and I did my due diligence. I joined the forums. I spoke to the people. I read what they were worried about. I said, they're not going for you like the far right would. Just stay quiet. That's I sent messages. Not me direct because I had no pull, but I sent messages with people who had high up connections. And I know it got to the head of the board of deputies and the head of the CST. And all I got back was a Searchlight article written by Nick Lowles. And I'm like, telling me what I knew about Tommy was wrong. It's like, oh God. And of course, then they go on the attack for 15 years and they still can't stop attacking. It's so dangerous.
It's crazy. It is what Gad Saad calls suicidal empathy. It's absolutely mental. But I mean, the work of Tommy out there, like you say, not just the work rate, but the quality of what he put out. I think it is his best work without a shadow. And look, I mean, I worked with him on the Rape of Britain videos from the beginning, and we were all really rightly proud of those videos, right? But you see what he's done in Israel, absolutely world class. I mean,
it's world class, and more than that. And I've read all the criticism because I read the comments, dumb as I am. I do read the comments, and so I've read a lot of the criticism that says, "Oh, why are you focusing on Israel? You're blah blah. You're Britain first. You're not." And those people are missing the point. The point is, Tommy's not coming here to blow smoke up our ass. We just don't. Frankly, in the civilizational battle we're fighting, Tommy's help is very nice and welcome, and it makes us feel good. But it doesn't move things. But you should be looking at Israel and Jews as to what we do right. We've got a country, okay? We know who we are. We know what our culture is. We've got a language. We've had massive immigration of Jews who come here and assimilate. They become Israelis, but they don't lose, like we've got Yemeni Jews, like my friend who's the lifeguard at the local beach. He's Yemeni. Now, he's almost black as the ace of spades, is an expression we are probably not allowed to say anymore, but he's dark, short, curly hair. He's actually a bit like Avi Yemeni, who's also Yemeni. Different food, different culture, but he comes here, he's Israeli. He speaks Hebrew. He's practicing Jew. In fact, he's the lifeguard we have one Orthodox beach, okay, which he's the head lifeguard for. And one day it's men and one day it's women. Now, most of the beaches are not like that, as you've seen in many videos, but that's the one beach for Herzliya, for that city, where you do that. Okay, that, you know, it's like, and that's a concession. That's a concession we wouldn't impose in Britain if you had any beaches, but we wouldn't demand a Jewish separate beach. But when we have our own country, we can have a Jewish separate beach, and we can put a fence up, and men can go one day and women can go the other, and that's perfectly fine. But like, the pragmatism about Judaism is that the lifeguards, who are all men, they cover both days. We do not have female lifeguards because there's a rule in Judaism that you can break just about every other rule if it's for life saving. So that's doctors work on the Sabbath, and we fight wars on the Sabbath because it's a matter of life and death.
Yeah. And that's in the New Testament as well. On this, you know, Jesus said, if your animal falls into a ditch on the Sabbath, you're not going to leave it there, and it's, you know, so it's pragmatic, isn't it? I mean, I think the Tommy thing, you know, again, and again, I'm not blowing smoke up. I'm one of Tommy's biggest critics. I'm not going to blow smoke up his backside, but the reality is that work was gold standard. And again, I mean, one of my friends was with him, you know, on the first half of the trip, and he said it was just like relentless. They were just at it and at it and at it, you know, and just.
That's why I said the day that this day. So Yad Vashem. Then we went to the Knesset, and then he went and did other, like I left sort of before they left the Knesset. Then I saw they took more pictures. They went into the main hall, and then they did something else that evening. It was nuts, and that was just one of the days. Every day was like that. And he was up at 6 a.m. running on the beach. But the quality and the way he's asking questions, the way he's listening, and he's learning. And this is something I've found with him right from the start. He never said, if he doesn't know something, he never makes something up. He just says, I don't know. And if it's interesting, he says, I want to learn that. How can I learn it? And I tell you, the other thing you can see with the success, Tommy's covered obsessively by the newspapers and so on. Not a word about the Israel trip. Right. Not a word. Daily Mail, Telegraph, Standard, none of them. They wrote nothing. It can only be because the work was too good.
Yeah. Yes. And also, I think, Brian, because there's a sea change. I think what the state is realizing is they cannot stop him, right?
Yeah.
And if they do stop him, then something probably really nasty is going to come in his place. And you and I both know that Tommy is not hankering for a civil war. Quite the opposite. Tommy's looking for a civic solution to our problems. And I mean, again, we'll not go into it tonight, but there's a whole lot of stuff in the prevent strategy, which to me has to be changed, because what the prevent strategy are calling civ nationalists now is extreme far right and terrorists. 100%. I did a video on it last night. So obviously there's a lot needs to be changed, but I think government will eventually catch up and realize, hold on a minute, the population is actually with this man. He's got to be the most influential activist in British history.
Well, I would go so far, and I've said this to Jewish groups here, and I'll say it to the ones in Britain. Tommy's the most important figure in Europe right now, I think, because he's the only one who has got a clear vision and a clear idea of what Islam is. He doesn't hate Jews for being Jews. He understands the dynamic of left and Islam and what's going on there. It's a very potent combination. And he also, he gets this idea of what this oligarchy is, as it says in manifesto, is trying to do. And it's a scary prospect. And we've got huge left-wing problems in Israel. That's what we were internally at war before October the 7th. And the only thing, and that war's flaring up again now with the left versus the right and the judiciary. And we've got a huge big scandal going on with the military prosecutor, which is I don't know, we can move to that.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's go on to the military prosecutor first. We'll talk about her for a bit, and then I want to talk about October the 7th, because again, I think we
Yeah,
need to keep
this leads into that.
Brian, we need to keep reminding people, because you don't hear anything on the news about October the 7th in the UK. It's
Yeah.
all, rubble strewn streets in Gaza. Oh, I wonder why that happened. Everybody's forgotten. So let's talk about this lady, if we can call her that.
If
Yeah,
that Toma Yerushalmi, yeah,
yeah,
she's actually a neighbor
yeah.
of mine. She's, by complete coincidence, she's the job title is translated as advocate general, but she's really more like an attorney general. She's the chief prosecutor and the chief lawyer, the highest ranking lawyer, major general, one of the highest ranked women ever in the history of the IDF. And she's now in prison. She's been locked up. What basically happened early on in the war, on October the 7th, we suffered this invasion, and it was a massive invasion. It was 3,000 or 4,000, I think, or 5,000. I sort of forget the numbers, of actual regular proper Hamas troops. They were an army. It was a light infantry unit with all the equipment. I mean, Toyotas, but everything else was military grade. It was thermobaric rocket propelled grenades. It was, and I've stood there and I've seen the cars that they've collected, and that was not done by fucking Apache helicopters. It was done by RPGs and Kalashnikovs. Anyway, we killed a lot of terrorists that day, but we also captured a whole load, and we put them in a prison called State Tayman, which is actually the word for Yemen, actually. And then we had to guard them, and we have this unit to guard them, who are, it's a rough job. You're guarding a whole group of the worst demons in any memory. I mean, I think for my money, these people are much worse than the Nazis.
Oh,
in fact, I'll just tell you a tiny little story from the trip. When we were in Yad Vashem, we had a wonderful guide who was of Welsh origin. His father was Welsh. And one of the things, this museum, you could spend 3 or 4 hours going through it, so we had to go through it quickly. He stopped, though, at one letter, which was a Nazi writing home to his family, saying that, at first it was kind of hard standing amongst all of these dead bodies. But, eventually you get used to it, you get over it. The difference there is that Hitler was working with ostensibly a Christian-based country, and he had to turn them into Nazis, into this killing machine. The Muslims, from the age of 2, they're slaughtering animals for Eid. They're used to being surrounded by blood. And by the time these guys got to 17, 18, 19, and then get told to go murder as many Jews as possible, they are absolutely up for it. And so their worst demon, they were easier. It's easier to direct them. Anyway, these people are in prison, and we've got this unit guarding them, and it's a shit job. And one day we hear that there's been some kind of assault, and then suddenly out of nowhere, in the main N12 Channel 12 news, which is the main left wing, the BBC of it, it's not state control, but it's the most watched news. They're showing this grainy, crappy video, which then everybody sees seems to be spliced together from 2 days, with people holding shields and something going on, and we're told it's a rape. And all over my X feed, ever since that day, I am told that Israeli soldiers are raping Palestinians in prison all the time. And it's all based on this one video and this one allegation. And they then actually send armed units with ski masks to arrest the soldiers. And then the next day, civilians go and raid the base. It just becomes a cluster of horror. And it turns out, and we learnt this only a week and a half ago, it turns out that this film was leaked to the press. We're not sure whether on the orders of, or just that she knew it was being done. The chief military lawyer, the head lawyer, the prosecutor who prosecutes soldiers, because we are what we say we are. We don't tolerate poor behavior by our soldiers, and in fact, we go after them pretty harshly.
And in fact, if I
And
can just jump in there, Brian, because if for people watching in the UK and all around the world that'll get seeing this when watching back, the truth of the matter is the idea of the Israeli army committing war crimes is absolutely ludicrous. And the guy, I forget his name, the guy who's the world authority on urban warfare has said he's never seen
Robert
Robert
Spencer.
Spencer. Yeah, Robert Spencer said he's not the other Robert Spencer. Yeah, but and he said
that's Richard Spencer.
That's Richard Spencer. No, there's a Robert Spencer and there's two Robert Spencers and
Colonel
Robert Spencer.
Is it not Robert Spencer? Colonel Spencer.
Maybe it's John Spencer. Anyway, whoever he is.
John.
It is John, isn't
sorry.
it? So John Spencer. So he basically said that this is the most professional, unique operation he's ever seen in his life, considering what they're fighting against. I mean,
the British, stupid. The British commander of armed forces in Afghanistan says exactly the same thing. Colonel Kemp. Listen, so anyway, she was the one that leaked this, and it came out last week because what happened was someone in her unit was being promoted, and whenever someone gets promoted, the internal security services of Israel, the Shabak, or this is also very confusing. Okay, note for there's three names: Shabak, Shin Bet, ISA. They're all the same. It's all the same. Don't ask. Shabak, Shin Bet, or ISA. They conduct a polygraph test when someone's getting promoted. Anyway, someone went to a routine polygraph test, and one of the questions apparently was, have you ever leaked anything to the media? And apparently this person gave an answer, and the thing went and here's the other thing is Netanyahu's just spent he spent like 4 months trying to fire the head of the Shin Bet, because if anybody failed on October the 7th, and we'll come back to this, it was the Shin Bet. Okay, Shin Bet is the internal Mossad. Mossad does Hezbollah and Iran. Shin Bet was supposed to be doing Gaza and the West Bank. So anyway, Netanyahu has just finished this horrible process of being allowed to fire the head of the Shin Bet. He leaves. Netanyahu appoints a new guy who seems to be okay. And 3 days after he's in his desk, this report about the failed polygraph test lands on his desk, the new guy. And he looks at it and says, whoa. And then, this person who failed then under interrogation says, yeah, we had a WhatsApp group. We were discussing this all in. And the whole thing unravels. And then this woman who's the head of that unit, she admits it. And she tries to justify it by saying that the right wingers were saying that she was accusing soldiers of bad things. So she had to show that she had some real case. And now then she disappeared last Friday. Everybody thought she'd committed suicide. Her car was found at the beach while my son's the lifeguard. And lo and behold, she shows up later, but her phone is missing. And all this week, there's 150,000 shekel, which is about, I don't know, 30,000 pound reward if you can find her phone. So there's people marching around with metal detectors. My lifeguard friend was in the water swimming. The divers have all been searching the sea. Everybody's looking for this 150,000 shekel phone. But this story, these are the kind of the outside press don't know how to spin this. The Israeli press doesn't know how to spin this because they don't know left or right. Everybody is angry with this woman though, because like I said, the Israelis are not very aware of how we're perceived outside, but they have realized that what this woman did was terrible. The way, it's one of the foundation now. There were so many rapes on October 7th, and yet I get people telling me all the time there were no rapes, but routinely Israeli soldiers rape people in prison. How and that happened because of one stupid woman leaking something to the press and making a crazy allegation. Oh, and by the way, the guy who was assaulted was released in this last deal. So he's not going to be around to give evidence. So the case is going to collapse anyway.
Yeah, I mean, and it's crazy. And I mean, whether it happened or not, I mean, I would be suspect about the whole thing happening.
If they beat him up, I don't give
yeah,
a shit.
yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
And another one was found with a phone up his ass. So
yeah,
it's like,
yeah,
these are
yeah.
not good people.
No.
And we were treating them too nicely. And in fact, everybody here is screaming for the death penalty. Why are these people alive?
Well, I mean, that's the shocking thing. You only hope that, and again, I just hope Israel does finish the job, and we'll talk. Tell me a bit. Talk about October the 7th,
7th.
Brian,
Okay.
because I mean, you were talking about rapes, right? I saw a video. In fact, I don't talk about it publicly, but I saw a video when this first happened, when all the Hamas were sharing all the stuff they had, and it was a woman in a car being strangled and raped in front of her 2 young children. Now, I saw. I've never seen it since. I deleted all the stuff. Once people sent me it, I'd look at it, and the only reason I looked at it because I thought I really need to. I'm not into this sort of snuff porn that gets sent around the internet. I don't like it. But I looked at that because I thought this is such a massive thing that we've got to really understand what's happened here. The other one where the guy and I don't think he was even Hamas. I think he was just a Palestinian scumbag. Chopped some guy's head off with a shovel. I mean, and all
the
that
garden
stuff.
hoe, and that was a
garden hoe. That was it. Yeah, yeah.
All of those videos are real and exist and were proudly put out into the world. And I was actually while Tommy was here, but he wasn't on this part. I was at just near me in a place called Glilot. There is the Intelligence Heritage Center. It's like a little museum where they put on stuff to do with the intelligence agencies. And we were shown like originals. We were shown stuff taken from the bodies of Hamas terrorists, the books with the instructions, how to film, hold your camera portrait, not landscape. Literally, that's the level of detail. We were shown something which actually only came out in the New York Times like 2 weeks ago. It was a handwritten letter by Yahya Sinwar, saying with all of these instructions. And this is the other thing. So like, I hear a podcast about this by the Ronen Bergman, the journalist from the New York Times. So he's reading some of the letter on this podcast, and then he reads the instructions, and then he says, oh, and then there's a verse of the Quran, and he skips over that. No, that's the point. It's all Quranically justified. He's reading the Hadith, strike terror into the hearts of the unbelievers. That's written in his handwriting by Yahya Sinwar. The Quranic justification. And I've said this, and a lot of Israelis for years, they've known I was the crazy one. He knew all this stuff about Islam, and nobody really knows it here. And after October 7th,
which again I find absolutely crazy.
I mean, how far do I have to reach before I've got a copy of Muhammad's Quran here?
Yeah, mine's in the cupboard there.
Yeah. And of course, I've got one signed by both authors. Anyway,
mine just signed by Tommy. So that's
So, but it's not signed by Muhammad, unfortunately. But no. So all these Israelis come to me and say, sort of all that stuff you said about Islam. Okay, we're more interested now. And I said, because everything they did on October the 7th was in the Quran, and it was in the stories about the life of the Prophet Muhammad.
Absolutely.
The only difference was they had GoPros this time. That's it. And believe you me, Muhammad would have loved GoPros. He loves that stuff. And so what actually happened was this they invaded in something like 30 different places on that fence. And in 2016, in 2016, on a Saturday afternoon, we were in Arad where Tal used to live. We drove to the border of Gaza to have a look. We look at some of the kibbutzes that now got wiped out, and there's this tower, and I take Tommy to see this, and we step over a fence that says "Don't go here, army only." We leave Tal in the car, and we climb this little tower, and we look into Gaza over the fence. And in the distance, we see a Toyota pickup. And the Toyota pickup drives to right opposite us, 800-900 meters, stops. We're looking with like a long lens, and there's like 6 guys sitting in the back. They don't have visible guns, but they're looking at us with binoculars. And I said to Tommy and the others, I said, in 2 or 3 minutes, we're going to get chased down from here. Sure enough, 3 minutes later, a Jeep pulls up, and these guys on a Saturday afternoon pile out of the Jeep. One with a light machine gun, and everybody else sidearms and stuff. And they shout at us, and we sort of slowly come down this tower, and then they start giving me a bollocking, and I pretend not to know a word of Hebrew. And then eventually we, start taking photos and smiling, and it's fine. It was, but
so that
I'm
was
guilty.
That was an unmanned tower.
It was an unmanned tower with cameras, and the cameras were watching us go up it. Now, and I'm guilty because why am I guilty? Because in 2016, what were they doing? They were checking to see what the response time to get to that spot was on a Saturday afternoon. That's what they've been doing. Yep. For 15 years. They've been kept measuring and counting, and they knew where all the bases were. And I mean, like we did some dumb stuff. So we have all these observers. Like my friend, my son's 18. His girlfriends from school, some of them are now going off to this job where they're going to look at TV screens all day. Those girls that were watching the Gaza border, instead of being like, underneath the nuclear reactor in Dimona, which they could have been, they were on the border. Why? Nuts. Absolutely nuts. So they were overrun in seconds. What Hamas did was at 6:29, which is when we knew about it here, and we came into this room, the rockets started. And they knew that when the rockets start, everybody, even in the IDF bases, goes to a shelter. And it was just stunning, beautiful. I mean, it was exactly what your enemy is always going to try and do, is surprise you. So we were completely flat-footed. It was the end of, we have about a month of holidays, which starts with Rosh Hashanah, then we have Yom Kippur, then we have a week-long thing called Sukkot, the festival of booths, the tabernacles.
Again, and Old Testament.
Old Testament. It was the last day. It was the last morning of Sukkot, also known as Simchat Torah, which is joy for receiving the Torah. It was a bank holiday, deep in a bank holiday weekend. Everything was asleep. We'd moved soldiers to watch the settlers in the West Bank because Shin Bet was massively lefty. They were the ones who, after the Gaza pullout in 2005, suddenly forgot that they had to have some spies in Gaza. They had no human intelligence sources in Gaza. We don't understand.
How long did that go on for? How long was there no human in Gaza for until the invasion, until the incursion?
From 2000. Well, what we're now starting to find out is that from 2005 to 2023, they just took their foot off the gas and just didn't operate in Gaza to the degree with which we think they should have been. They're all these are the guys that you see in Fauda, okay?
Yeah.
And we hope and we think that they're very busy in the Judea, Samaria, West Bank. But the other thing that's happened is that they're also very concerned about Jewish settlers, far-right violence. So there was an ideological problem.
In the UK, it's exactly the same.
Yeah, your prevent strategy and arresting Tommy in Folkestone or wherever. There's all of that was going on. And then, armies just, once the invasion was underway, all of the communications was just crapping down because they took out, they used domestic drones, which we'd allowed them to have so they could film weddings and stuff. We didn't ban that technology. So they dropped with DJI drones, they dropped little hand grenades on top of the communications things. I mean, there was a German guy who taught them all how to paraglide. Okay. He didn't realize what they were learning that for. They were going off to Hezbollah in Lebanon, and they were going to Iran to learn how to fly paragliders, to be the first troops over the border. I've been to Kibbutz Aza. Now, Kibbutz Aza, again, most of the kibbutzes around there, a lot of them were very sort of peace, coexistence. They had all the Palestinians come work for them. So they had mapped out all the kibbutzes. I went to Kibbutz Aza a few weeks ago, and it still hasn't been repopulated yet. And what they showed me there was, again, left-wing sort of thinking. it used to be that everybody had a gun, okay? And on the kibbutzes, they still had guns, but they had decided for safety, to stop the kiddies getting hold of them, they put them in an armory. Now, the Gazas, Hamas knew where the armory was, and before the 629 thing, one of the paraglider units and a foot unit, this kibbutz is right, there's literally a fence that runs around the back of it. They had cut their way in quietly through the fence, and they were on the roof of the armory with an ambush waiting. So when the kibbutz security team first got scrambled, some of them maybe have got a pistol at home, but all the long guns were in the armory. They go for the armory. It was a killing field. It was a killing field. And it was from them that, I saw that the house, there was a pair of twins that just got released in this hostage deal. They came, I saw the homes that they lived in Kibbutz Aza, and I was there before they were released. So the level of planning, and this was a massively brilliantly executed act of war. And then you got 3 or 4 waves of so-called civilians, and the civilians did things that were worse in many cases than the regular troops. And look, there was a massive failure. There was a failure of intelligence. There was a failure to know what to do. We saw the signs in the middle of the night. They didn't wake. Bibi claims he wasn't woken. We don't, we're waiting to hear. We have to have a massive inquiry. And the political wrangling that's going on is that Bibi doesn't want to let the left-wing dominated judiciary run an inquiry, and they don't want to let him choose there is stupid politics going on as to why we haven't had this massive inquiry that we need to have. But the other thing is that those of us, and my Hebrew is not great, but if you understand Hebrew and you follow the Hebrew press, we've had so much more detail. We know which Apaches were up in the air and what they were seeing and what they were shooting at and what they weren't shooting at. And again, this woman who's currently sitting in a police cell at the moment, her unit was responsible for years for setting rules of engagement. Now, back when there was the Black Lives Matter thing in America, what did the Palestinians in Gaza do? Well, they decided to have a march of return.
That's right. What were they? I remember it. Yep.
Yeah. What were they doing? They were approaching the fence.
Yep.
And getting as close to the fence and sometimes putting bombs on the fence. They were testing us. And we were treating it as a protest. It wasn't a protest. It was a vanguard of an attack. It was the probing. And what we should have been doing was enforcing a very strict 500-meter or 1,000-meter death zone. Anybody step foot within 1,000 meters of the fence gets shot. But we never did that because it would have been filmed and it would have gone out on the news, and this woman would have then prosecuted all the soldiers. And those conditions they paralyzed the army on October the 7th. And then, there's something came out last week. There was a recording from one of the meetings that happened in the center at 10:30 in the morning. So they're trying to work out some kind of arrangement. Not civilians, but army people are just without their units. They're just getting their guns, getting in their cars and driving down, like to rescue family members who are on the phone saying, come rescue me. And they're driving down, and there's a meeting in the Kiryat, in the Ministry of Defense, and the representative of Shabak, of the Internal Security Services, apparently what he was worried about was that too many Israelis would go down there and commit war crimes against the terrorists. Israeli. It's like they should have been handing out more guns, not being worried that guns would be used inappropriately.
That's the whole. And some of the stories of some of those guys were absolutely incredible.
Absolute heroes.
Heroes. You've got sort of
60-year-old guys putting on their uniform and just driving 3 hours in their car from the Golan all the way down.
Yeah.
The Druze guys.
There was a 70-year-old ex-para went,
Yes,
went down
they
and
just
did the
stormed
business.
in. Yeah,
Man.
the stories
How close did it? I mean, how close did they come to getting a real breakthrough, Brian? That you had
they
is how
got real breakthroughs.
I
I
know
tell
because they
you,
got to Chicago.
Ofakim was
Yeah,
30 kilometers from Gaza. You know
30
that.
wow. Yeah.
Now listen.
What was the big town that they went into? The city they went to?
Well, Sterot is
Sterot.
very
Yeah,
close. But
Sterot.
I mean, like I went to the Sterot police. They took and held the Sterot police station, and in the end, Sterot police station was then destroyed by Israeli tanks. That is for sure. But there were policemen trapped on the roof who got helicoptered away, and then eventually they couldn't get these guys out of the police station. They just leveled it. And in fact, what they've done is where the police station used to stand is now a memorial, and the stones that used to be the walls of the police station make up this sort of sunken memorial of the level of overrun. Now, it was somewhat lucky that, like, there were a couple of air bases. They could have gone and taken out F-35s. They really could have done, because those bases were not guarded to the level that if 50 Toyotas arrived with 6 men in each.
It's what the SAS did in the Second World War.
Well, and you had your guys come and spray paint planes at the RAF bases. I don't think our bases are as lax as that, but this was Palestine action with spray cans. If 50 Hamas guys had turned up with RPGs, they probably could have made their way onto a base.
But again, Brian,
they did break into other bases. They broke into the observer bases. They took 3 significant IDF bases and held them all day.
I think they took one of the Golani brigades because they were all asleep or something, didn't they? Or one of the Golani units.
Well, they weren't asleep, but they all went to the shelters, and they knew where the shelters were. And
so they just hand grenades, and
it was just a massacre. And the thing is, you served, right? You
of course,
So you know that armies are just like an extension of government. They're not well run often, and
well, it was when I was in, Brian.
but this, there's differences at the sort of the big level and the small level, and once you're taken by surprise,
every soldier on the front line is always complaining about his commanding officers going right the way up the chain, and not without cause, because when you're at the sharp end, you know what's going on, and these guys in the ivory towers that are political don't know what's going on. But I'm thinking about that Palestine action thing. We'll come back onto this October 7th in a minute, but the Palestine action thing, those guys going into Bryce Norton, that was a recce. They're probing. What they're doing is
I
think.
Yeah, that's what I think.
They're just getting ready. And again, if we get time, we'll talk. Well, maybe not do it on this video. We'll talk about that on another time, maybe. But yeah. So carry on about October. Sorry, just before we go on, Hezbollah. If Hezbollah, I'm just going to put a scenario together here, Brian.
Yeah.
So let's say
if they'd have done it, if it had been coordinated,
and the Iranians had started lobbing,
Okay, so I'll tell you about the Iranian stuff. Yeah. So our Hamas went early. Sinwar went early, hoping that Hezbollah would follow. And he didn't coordinate it because I think he knew how badly infiltrated both Iran and Hezbollah actually were. Had Hezbollah started staging their fighters next to the thing, they would have turned on all their walkie-talkies. We would have read all their pager messages. We would have known exactly what was coming. And then we would have applied that to Hamas. So he went early hoping that they would join. They weren't in a position to join because Hezbollah's whole plan, they had all the weapons and the equipment staged on the border to mount a force 10 times the size of what Hamas sent. But they weren't ready because all those people were spread all over Lebanon, and they would all have had to have, and their plan was to go down to the south of Lebanon as civilians. So it would have been a whole load of civilian traffic, trying not to look like 15,000 men mustering, but you can't hide 15,000 men mustering because, food, all of the logistics of it. But they had it all ready to go. They had all their jackets, their guns, and so on. and of course, on October 7th and October 8th, we rushed massive amounts of men and equipment to the north because we were terrified that they would launch this attack. And Iran, okay, the ballistic missile threat, we had two bouts of 2 nights or occurrences of missiles from Iran. And, in the second one of them landed just basically, I've got a window here to my left, 1.5 or 2 kilometers in that direction, straight out that window, behind another multi-story building, thankfully. One of Iran's big rockets landed actually in the car. It missed everything it should have hit, it wanted to hit, but it landed in the car park of a new shopping center. And that one shook this room I'm in, which is my bomb shelter. It shook the steel shutter that's on my window. And I heard an explosion followed by a sonic boom. And if you know the physics of this, if you shouldn't, the sonic boom arrives after the missile, because the missile came in at Mach 8, and then the sonic boom comes afterwards. And you don't want to be close enough to the explosion to hear the sonic boom.
Which you did, yeah.
Yeah.
I remember that on Twitter. Actually, I think we were chatting on Twitter about that, and it was like, you don't get much closer, Brian.
Yeah, that was too close.
Missile in your back garden.
And then and then when we had the war in June, the real war, June 13, and we get this alert at 3 o'clock in the morning, or 1, whatever the time was in the morning, exactly 60 days and an hour after Trump's warning ran out, which was funny as hell. In that one, like, my brother-in-law's building got hit, and he lives in a set of 4 large buildings, 20 stories high, with 4 or 5 apartments per floor, and all 4 of those buildings are evacuated. That's it. They're all out. Two or three people died because one of these missiles exploded right outside their strong room, and it's not strong enough for that. But it wiped out, like, his building was the one that got hit, and it got hit on the 4th floor on one side. He lives on the 18th floor on the opposite side, and just the flat was just all the plasterboard walls and stuff, and the metal things bent, and the door blown off its hinges. They were okay in their safe room. These things were big. So the point is that had it been Hamas coordinated with Hezbollah, coordinated with Iranian missiles, Israel could have ended. Israel could have ended.
Yep,
we could have been in the position of Israel saying, do we press the big red button and fire something from a sub?
Yep. And that's, I think, and that's the other thing. I mean, people are forgetting that Israel's nuclear arms. So all these lunatics that are running around supporting Hamas, every Arab dies. I mean, that's how it ends. Let's get it right. Because they're not just hitting Tehran. Like, they're hitting a lot of places if it goes on.
I don't know if we. Anyway, I don't.
Well, would they? I mean, with the lefties, who's got the button?
Who's got all at the moment? Netanyahu.
Yeah.
But look, so people have forgotten very quickly, and then we don't forget, because like literally yesterday in the I live next to the biggest cemetery in North Tel Aviv. Right in there yesterday, there was a funeral for someone who died on October the 7th, because we got the body back yesterday. And the chief of staff and the head of the army and everybody was in the cemetery, still burying. We are still burying victims of October the 7th. You don't get that. And I don't care.
The effect it had, Brian, on Jewish people in England, right? There was a friend of mine, very successful businessman. His brother had a heart attack when he heard the news. 70-odd-year-old, very fit man. He didn't die, had a heart attack. I stayed with Jewish people just after that happened, and they were absolutely broken by it. It was like your dad had died, right?
It was 100 times worse for Israelis, because the sense of what actually happened on October 7th was, we come in this room in my family. So we come into this little room that I'm in now, which is our shelter, and the sirens are going. We turn on, we get on the internet. Fortunately, I have good internet in this room. We get on we look at channel 12, and they're showing like pre-recorded crap, Like there's nobody in the studio. It took them like 20 or 30 minutes to get on air. And then what happened through the day was they started having these phone calls. People were calling the television stations and the radio stations from the Nova party. I'm under a pile of bodies. Could someone come rescue me? And I mean, it was unbelievably distressing, because Israelis, most of whom have been and served in the army, they couldn't understand how we'd failed, how the failure was so immense. And, learning all of the ways, I talk about it like I watch a lot of videos about aircraft crash investigators, and they've got this model for it. They call it the Swiss cheese model. So in order for an aircraft to crash, it's never just one thing. It's never just like the pilot made a mistake. It's always like this wasn't fixed properly 12 years ago, and then this was done, and then this was done, and this was done. And these are like slices of Swiss cheese with holes. And in order for a crash to happen, you've got to just lay all the slices down so the holes go all the way through. That's what it feels like with the IDF. It's like it isn't one thing. It's decisions made to pull out of Gaza in 2005. It goes back to Oslo, to 1993, to thinking we could have peace, the thinking that we could give them land and have peace. It's like, and then rules of engagement, the probing the fence, all of these things led to, and then being worried more about settler violence, which is bullshit, and sending too many troops there and not having enough on the border, and thinking that if you let Qatar give them money and if they have nice weddings and beautiful apartments, which they all did. I mean, my friend Imshin, for years she's been posting, she's been watching, she wanted to learn Arabic, so she started watching Instagram and then TikTok from Gaza, and she was always posting the best ones of these gorgeous apartments. I mean, like their taste is very Trumpian, gold everywhere and stuff like this. I can see actually why Trump likes the Arabs.
I was going to say we're going to come on to Trump in a minute, because I've got real
Trump
concern.
And the Arabs.
I mean, do you know what, Brian? Here's the thing. I mean, you're probably in a pretty unique position coming from England, and obviously having a real insight into what Islam's all about. And I think the problem with Western governments across the board is they do not understand religion, and they specifically don't understand Islam. And I'm shocked.
This is a Marxist thing.
That's what shocked me, that the Israeli government don't either. Yeah. And I want to talk about Trump, because I'm really worried, Brian, about the Trump deal. Tell me what you think. Tell me what you think.
Look, I was worried very much about Witkoff and his business dealings with the Qataris. They bailed him out of some big hotel deal. I'm worried about the Qataris in general. One of the things that sort of led me up to leaving the UK was working at Associated Press Television News in Camden. And I saw that by a whole series of events, half the building was speaking Arabic in London, in Camden. Okay. And that was because the way the business model was organized, it had been captured by the Arabs. And in fact, Al Jazeera was started because they saw a great business because they thought AP's making a ton of money from Arabs on this. We'll start Al Jazeera as well, do the same thing. But they'd already captured AP, Associated Press. The whole world's TV went through that. So when you're watching the BBC, they were taking the pictures from AP Television News, and then it was going to the BBC. And what I learned there was that nothing good about Israel ever passed through. It wasn't necessarily that they were lying all the time. It was that there was a filter on positive. You never saw a positive. You always saw conflict and terrible stuff coming out through Israel. Now, we jump forward now, and we've got the Qataris, who I think are, they're full Muslim Brotherhood. They're full take over and conquer the world. They trying to bridge the gap between Sunni and Shia with Iran, and I don't trust them at all.
No,
I don't really trust the Saudis and the UAEs, but they seem to have pragmatically realized that it was a total dead end trying to blow everything up. But the Qataris are worrying me.
That could change very quickly, though, Brian.
I know, and that's the point. That's what I learned from 1400 years of Islamic history. Yeah, you can have a good caliph and you can live okay. And then the next one can show up and suddenly you're back to the worst dimitude again. It's never stable. Dimitude is not a stable condition. Anyway, with Trump, firstly, I'll be positive to start with. I always thought this way back to 2015 and 16. And I had reason to believe this because of all the stuff I did with the counter jihad in the early 2000s, mid 2000s. I think Trump was deeply affected by 9/11 in ways that people still don't understand. He was a property developer in Manhattan. That's his thing. Okay. I think he was devastated by the fall of those buildings, devastated. And I think he went and learned about Islam. I know that there are pictures of him with Elizabeth Sabaditch-Wolf and Frank Gaffney from, I think it was the opening of Tom Trento's, is it Trento? He opened some Unite the West, did the anti-jihad thing.
Yeah.
And Trump threw in a few dollars and so on. I think Trump knows Islam. And I think from his first term, he used to tell this story about the lady and the snake, and why did you bite me? It's like, I'm a snake.
Because that's what I do. It's the same with the scorpion.
That's what I do. No, as a scorpion. And he told that sometimes about sort of generalized immigration, but at least one time he told it specifically about Islam. I think he does know more, but he's also sometimes too much of this sort of transactional business guy. And I don't know, I think Gaza is completely and utterly kaput. It's like, I don't think you can build there again in the future because the tunnels have made reclamation of the ground impossible. I think from an engineering point of view, it's ruined land. You've got tunnels, you've got some estimates now have said it's 700 kilometers, 700 kilometers of tunnels. The thing's 26 miles and 12. It's like, how do you, and so when you do the maths, you find out that there must be a tunnel every 100 meters. And some of these tunnels are running, they're in 3 dimensions. So they've dug tunnels and then they dug a deeper tunnel. It's like Trump's particular thing of doing deals. And look, you can't understand what the hostage thing was doing to Israel until you were here, with the pictures everywhere and yellow. I drive to the other side of our neighborhood. There were 60 yellow chairs by the side of the road for months, and they would take the chairs away as people got released. We had to get all the living. We would have done almost anything, but we wouldn't. Thank God. People say we should have done the deal earlier. The deal was never on the table of us holding 53% of Gaza and getting all the living hostages.
Yeah.
And it's killing us that we haven't got all the dead ones yet. So
yeah, and I mean, and that's something I don't personally, I don't understand that with the dead ones, but it's a Jewish thing. It's obviously it's the thing about the bodies and so on and so forth, and probably Catholics would get that as well. But I'm like, okay, if you're dead, you're dead. That sounds very callous. You know what I mean? But I think I
can send you one podcast. I'll have to dig it up for you. I will send you. I'm also not. I wouldn't have and it's quite possible that we lost living soldiers for dead bodies, which is terrible. But you that's the other thing, is you miss out. You don't understand what's going on if you cast aside other people's deeply held beliefs, and that's a problem.
Totally, and that, like I say, I don't understand it, but obviously it's that important that But I think the other thing is, the thing that really worries me is the point of possibly having Qatari or Turkish soldiers in the Gaza Strip.
Yeah, I think no, the Turkish soldiers are never going. No, to be honest, none of them will go to the Strip because none of them will try and attack. None of them will face off with Hamas because they'll all lose, and nobody is going to say nobody. This is American soldiers are not going to die for us. British soldiers are not going to die for us. We don't ask for them. We don't want them. And you're not going to do it, and we don't care because we'll take care of our business. We're not an expeditionary force. We're not, we've never, the furthest we've got was Syria. We took out we sent some special forces into Syria quite a bit, but we know
Did you see
we're the
that
only
footage?
people.
Did you see that footage where the Syrian TV presenter standing in front of I think it was the Ministry of the
That
Interior
was after
after
they attacked the
started
Druze.
massacring the Druze, and she's talking, all of a sudden it just explodes.
You
That was
know,
comedy gold, along with the page. I mean, let's look at some of the light bits of this. The pages, the
you
nuclear
see, that's
scientists. I mean,
comparing. Look, what the failures of the Shin Bet and the Shabak are contrasted with the Mossad, which we all kind of liked. It's like
everyone
we
loves
all
Mossad.
hoped that the Mossad was that good, but we didn't actually know it was that good. We just didn't. It took everybody. I mean, I'm with people who served in intelligence.
Only a woman could have devised the pager plot.
The pager plot, the walkie-talkies. I mean, and then I tell you, I think that we still don't know what happened on the first night. The first night of the Iran war, June 13. So we get woken at 1:30 or whatever it is in the morning by this bizarre text message. We've got this national alert system, which we've been using extensively. But, and I know you in Britain don't, it's like, why is the government pinging my phone? Well, actually, when you have an existential threat to your nation, you need this. And it's really good. So they ping us at 1:30 in the morning, and it was like a new sound that they had a whole new sound for us. And you're lying in bed and your phone, which is on silent and on night mode and stuff, and suddenly and then that's followed by the wailing from the outside siren at 1:30 in the morning. And you read the thing, and the message said, something is about to happen. Be near your protected room. It didn't say go to your protected. It said something is about to happen. We don't get a message like normally, like they tell us it's like inbound missile from Yemen, or it's like something is about. And so we all like, what the fuck? And then I get on X, of course, and stuff starts blowing up in Iran. And what was going on there? We had these agents on the ground. We had drone attacks on the anti-aircraft facilities with these little small drones. I mean, like the thing Ukraine did, but I think on another scale.
Yeah.
And then we had this simultaneous assassination of all of their nuclear scientists and their entire top brass, who gathered in one place that we knew where it was going to be, and boom.
Superb. I mean, and the other thing is, Brian, it's comforting to know that the Ayatollah is a Mossad asset.
Well, clearly, and actually, it's this Chief General Casella, whatever his name is, who's got his own X account now, and it's like it's that. But then it got serious. I mean, and then it really got serious. When they fired back the next day, and we knocked out most of the missiles, but every now and then they were landing, and then they started landing with more frequency. I mean, I'll say this: towards the end, there was a hit on a hospital in Beersheba, a very big hospital. And it actually happened to hit a ward that had been evacuated the previous day, which starts to lead me to believe that we did know where they were aiming by methods. Yeah. So all this stuff was happening. And, there was stuff that landed near me. As I say, the one that took out my brother-in-law's apartment was, that's like 5 or 6 kilometers, and we felt that. We knew it because what happened, my her mother lives nearby, and then she's got 2 sisters, so they're all on the WhatsApp groups, and this one hit, and we felt it here, and then sister 1 comes back on, mother comes back on, but sister 2 does not appear, and it's like, oh shit. Then panic sets in, and then we hear, but they didn't get a phone signal for an hour or so. And then the next thing, we're in the living room watching TV, and one of our little cousins walks past the TV picture in her pajamas outside. I was like, oh my God. So, you laugh about it, but like 29 Israelis died. I don't think any military, it's actually quite bizarre that you can kill 29 Israeli civilians and not hit someone who was serving at the time. So they killed 29. Now, my friend's done the maths. He's a big rocket expert. And I don't think your press has lied to you, or they don't know what they're talking about. Every one of these missiles they fired at us is a orbital capable rocket. If you wanted to, you could put a 300 or 400 kilogram satellite into orbit with one of these rockets,
or a nuclear weapon,
or a nuclear weapon if you've got one. But if you go and do math, if like we know how much it costs to put 500 kilos into orbit with SpaceX, who are the most efficient senders of stuff to orbit. The Iranians spent much more money on those ballistic missiles than we have been told. Okay, it cost them years of just their entire national infrastructure devoted to creating 29 dead Jews and others. And it's the most expensive blood in history. And, you know, can they do it again? I don't know. But I tell you what, I don't like this obsession with the nuclear side, because having seen what those rockets do and been under them and felt them, I'm much more worried about the certain and real danger from those rockets than the uncertain and perhaps danger of nuclear weapons.
Are all the rockets destroyed? I mean, is Israel even saying that? We don't know.
Don't know.
Yeah.
And you know, again, that was another war that Trump kind of ended for us. I mean, thanks very much for the B-2s. I mean, and that's the other thing. I mean, Trump, come on. You know, they sent like a massive arm. By the way, I think I now know that was in the planning at least 4 weeks before, because all through the war we've had GPS jamming. Okay, now you know GPS. Everybody uses GPS all the time. So for most of the war, and the first time I came across this was I went down to Eilat with my brother-in-law. The early days of the war. We're driving home. We went there and back in a day, which is a big drive. It's 4 hours each way, and I'm in the passenger seat. My brother-in-law's driving, and I get this phone call from my mother. She's like, "Where are you?" I'm driving back from Eilat. He says, "Because Apple says you're in Cairo." I'm like, so I pull my phone out. I was like, Google Maps. Oh God, yes, I'm in Cairo. And I look out the window. No, I'm definitely on Highway 6. And so that was my first experience of GPS scrambling. And you know, I said to my mother, "Calm down. I'm not in Cairo. I'm just." And then from the rest of the war, it's like when you got north of Israel, you wound up being on the runway in Beirut, or sometimes you were on a runway in Amman. They always picked airports because then DJI drones wouldn't take off. You see,
right? Yeah.
And so we had all this GPS spoofing, and then also near the base near me, when you drove near there, it spoofed you so that you were just sort of flying around in sort of, you were doing crazy loops around the base.
Yeah.
Anyway, about 3 or 4 weeks before the whole Iran thing kicked off, I was sitting on my sofa. My phone tells me I'm out in the middle of the Mediterranean, and I'm doing an absolutely perfect circle at about 140 knots because I'm looking at a yachting navigation program.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's weird. I've never seen that one before. And
I
think that was I think that was American GPS jamming. That was totally different from the Israeli ones.
Yeah.
Anyway, so they fly in, they drop their bombs, and they're so proud that nothing got a shot at us. Yeah, because we spent a week clearing this, like, just like, here you go, red carpet, boys, just fly on in. Nobody will see you.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it was. I mean, you know, obviously, you know, the tragedy.
Okay, sorry, go on. I have to say something about the Israeli Air Force.
Yeah.
There has never been an Air Force, I think, in the history of the world that has operated at the tempo with which the Air Force has been operating for 2 years straight. They went from bombing Gaza full time to bombing Lebanon and Gaza at the same time, to then bombing Lebanon, Gaza, and Iran. And Iran, when you look at the distances, it's insane.
And
Yemen. A few trips to Yemen. And I think the trips to Yemen were practice for Iran, which is slightly closer. And we even bombed stuff on the eastern side. We bombed stuff right next to Pakistan. I mean, in Baluchistan. And we I mean, I can't even begin. I don't like saying it, but we lost nothing. We didn't lose a plane or a person. It's unbelievable, the operational tempo. It's my mind is staggered how many sorties there must have been.
Do you know what, Brian? I don't know how religious you are or not, but I mean, if you don't see God's hand in that, then
Yeah,
you're not paying attention.
I listen.
You know,
I'm more religious than I was. You know,
yeah,
there are no
sure.
atheists in foxholes. I'm
Fox,
in my
sure not, yeah.
foxhole.
But it's not even that. It's the miraculous deliverances of Israel time and time and time again since 1948. It's not just a one-off. You know, it's
Yeah,
just it's absolutely incredible. What I mean, okay, so on Israel first, where are you guys at? What do you think is going to happen, Brian? You know, are you going to be able to destroy Hamas? What's going to happen?
I don't know. I don't know. I really don't know. I don't. You know, we have to look. I know one thing, that the Palestinians in Gaza cannot have any nice things unless Hamas surrenders and puts down arms. Am I okay with them not having nice things? Yeah, okay. They can't have houses. You can just have tents. I don't care. I think it's like this thing of manifestation. You know, you are what you. For 75 years, they've been telling us they were refugees, and they weren't refugees. You know, I took Tommy to a refugee camp. It was not a
Yeah,
refugee camp. It's a crap neighborhood,
yeah.
but it's not a refugee camp. Now they are refugees.
Yeah.
Now they are living in
You reap
tents.
what you sow. You reap what you sow.
They've manifested exactly what they've said they were for 70 years. They claimed this right of return. It's never a right. It was never going to happen. They were never going to return. And they still cling to this. And the trouble is, the rest of the world, and this is where Britain and all these other countries come in, you're creating this because you're affirming for them the righteousness of their cause. You're telling them they can have a country. You're telling them they can have a Palestine. But you see, when Starmer says it, perhaps he thinks Jews can still live here too. But when they hear it, the whole ethos of Palestinianism is to replace Israel. It is not in addition to Israel. It was never about, because Palestine is identity theft. It is the theft of the identity of the Jews. The name Palestine was this thing invented by the Romans just to wipe Judea off the map. They didn't want to call it Judea, so they called it Syria Palestina, with the Palestine bit coming from the Philistines.
Philistines, exactly, and that was their little bit, wasn't it? The
But it's
Gaza.
just,
That's where they used to hang out. The
it's a
Philistines.
bullshit name, and the
Yeah.
Arabs haven't even. There's one town. I'm not even going to say the name. One person in the audience might know it. The Arabs have got almost no towns that they have named. So, like Nablus, everybody's heard of Nablus. Nablus is actually a corruption of a Roman name, Neapolis, new city. That's what it
Right.
is.
Okay. Yeah.
And actually, the town is a Jewish town, a biblical town called Shechem. It's the burial place of Joseph. Joseph's tomb is in Shechem. But
they're the bones
the
they brought
Romans,
back. The
yes, the
from
Romans they
Egypt.
brought back from Egypt. And the Romans just gave it a new name because they were trying to erase Jews out of the whole story. And this is all over the place. This is just everywhere. And they've tried to steal our identity. They try and steal our history. They've invented their Nakba. Now they're inventing genocides so that they can have a genocide too. We want one too. You know, they had a Holocaust.
Be careful
We can
what
have a
you wish
genocide.
for, you know. You know what I mean?
And so they have to. They're matching us to try and take our identity. Islam itself is a replacement theology. Islam seeks to replace Judaism and Christianity. The most profound thing I ever learned about Islam was that Moses was a Muslim who led the children of Israel to the Holy Land for the Muslims. Unless you understand that, and we're not talking about whether it's true or not. We're talking about what do 1 billion plus people teach their children.
That's the problem, Brian. The problem is, you know, people talk about, oh, Muhammad didn't exist. It doesn't matter whether he existed or not. If they believe he existed and he's their perfect man that they want to emulate, you're going to get ISIS, you're going to get Al-Qaeda, you're going to get Hamas. And to me, the the only solution is it has to be radical Islam has to be completely and utterly crushed. I'm not talking about Muslims, but that ideology has to be discredited, destroyed, and that's a generational, at least a generation to do it.
I talk about it like this with, and this is what Tommy observes here. Look, we've got 20% of our population are Arabs, Muslim, and most of those are Muslims. And they're well integrated to a large port. Every now and then something bad happens, but when we are strong, when the Jews are strong, when we assert ourselves, when we are dominant in a very, in a sort of dog, how dog packs work, or horses and so on. When you're dominant, they go quiet, and what happens is they become almost dimified, and they are humbled. Now, we don't treat them the way they would treat dhimmis. We don't humiliate them to that degree and make them. There's no apartheid or different laws for Jews and Arabs and so on. But they have to feel that we are being strong. And what happened when we do deals like Oslo and pull out of Gaza? They see weakness, and so they rise. Right now, they're taking, they look at Gaza and they understand what happens when you get the Jews pissed off. And so we don't have peace, but we can have quiet. Now, whether we can ever have quiet with the ones in Judea, Samaria, or Gaza, we have to be continually strong and always on the defensive. And I think in the West, what's gone, the huge mistake is that Islam should never have been welcomed. Maybe it should have been tolerated a bit, but no, there should never have been halal. There should never have been any public displays. That should have been stamped on. You're not praying in the street. Okay, you've got a mosque, pray in there. All of these public observances, you should not be allowed to tell Birmingham whether Jewish football fans can walk through Birmingham. That you've given the inch and they've taken 50 miles. And Tower Hamlets, I call it now on X, I always call it occupied Tower Hamlets, because that's your problem. You one day are going to have.
You've been colonized.
You've been colonized, and this is this inversion. Jews are the indigenous people of Israel. Everybody can see it when you get here. If you know your Bible, it's like that's where Jews are from. Everything about us. When we get married, we say, if I forget thee, Jerusalem, may my tongue cleave to my mouth and my right arm be withered and died. We've said that for 1,000+ years. Yeah. It's like, it's not a joke. When Tommy did the tours, I must go and do those tours again because there's so much more. He toured the David City, which is the original Jerusalem, and there's this walkway from the pool up to the wall, up to the temple. It's like, and then you find under the floorboards this places where Jews were hiding and then slaughtered by the Romans, as it's told in Josephus. It's like, oh, come on, stop being stupid.
But this is what the way that the whole Western media elite have gaslit everybody. And I mean, and the well-meaning idiots, and some people are just dumb, but there's got to be a lot of lefties that are just pure evil and filled with venom against it's like they're against everything that's good. And the Birmingham thing, I mean, when I first heard them announcing the Birmingham thing, and obviously then the Maccabee guy said, we're not coming, right? And I was like, well, okay, well then there's no point in doing a counter demonstration. But those rats are going out anyway. And I'm gonna
they're
play
closing
you,
schools. You play me that.
Play you a couple of videos here, Brian. Just bear with me because I can talk, but I'm not a video producer. So let's see if we can get these playing. Okay.
All this far right of justice, solidarity, and more importantly, unity. We must be united against racism, hooliganism, and all this far right nonsense. West Midlands police have been spoken to, and they will ensure safety of all protesters and Villa supporters on that day. Villa supporters need to understand that we also support them.
Absolutely, and my message to specifically the youth of Aston, the youth of Birmingham, the 700 officers from West Midlands Police and other police forces that have been drafted to protect us against right.
Protect them from who?
This is the whole. But the scary thing is, Brian, they have been drafted to protect them.
I know, but protect them from who?
Exactly,
each other?
Exactly.
Who's going to show up? The IDF? I mean, really, it would be nice.
Now, this guy, this is even more sinister, right? Just listen to this guy. Now, this guy is a jihadist. Which one's it's not Beg, it's the other one, but Beg and Bet, or whatever his name is. But this guy is jihadist, right? So a retired jihadist. Now he's a community worker, which is great.
Technically speaking, you know, this match shouldn't even be taking place.
Like they did with Russia. Why?
Yeah.
Look at the
Double standards. Yeah, you know, so, you know, exactly, yeah. We can go into the, you know, into the semantics of all of this. Now, why should we turn up? And I'm saying this, you know, to everybody that's watching and listening to this, yeah. Every single one of you Muslims from Birmingham, young and old, yeah, up and down the country need to come on the 6th to Birmingham, to the Villa Ground, and need to show your support, because
they're really getting into football now, Brian. Really getting.
What's going to happen here is that the whole world's media is going to be there. Yeah. And those images are going to go all around the world. And the images where I want them to go, that is more important to me, is to the Palestinians.
I just had to stop that for comedy effect there, Brian, right? We'll go on. But this is gold.
No,
this is gold,
but listen, this is what I've said about replacement theology.
Yeah.
And identity theft. They're stealing the EDL's identity. They're taking they're taking the Football Lads Alliance thing. I was like, okay, we're gonna have the Muslim football lads now.
Yeah. The Muslim Defense League, but when you hear it gets better, it gets better.
Yeah. I want the Palestinians to see the clips on their TikToks in Palestine.
Hey, there's a genocide happened. How come they've still got TikTok? What's going
on?
Of
course they've got. They've never not had TikTok.
What's going on?
In Gaza, of Birmingham Muslims, me, you, and all the other people that are watching, standing there in solidarity, and them to see that we have not forgotten you. Of course. Yeah. And like, it's not going to happen. They're not going to come. But even if they had come, it would have been a whole different ball game. Because I'm telling you now,
because they're violent thugs.
Because they're violent thugs.
He's talking about the Maccabee.
The Maccabee fans, I know.
Because they're a notorious football firm. I've heard, you know, I've been watching football stuff for years, and I've really heard of the Maccabee football thugs. That, you know, they're terrible people.
Thugs and
Beitar Jerusalem are worse.
Yeah.
There are some Jerusalem teams, but it doesn't matter. It's like most of it. You know what? It's just like England. Most of the football thuggery has died down to a great. You know, it's.
Well, what I mean, they're going on about Amsterdam. Amsterdam was an ambush set up by.
That was an ambush. Of course, it was all planned on the WhatsApps and so on. We've seen it all.
This is really sinister. This next bit. This is really sinister. So
you know, yeah. And I was just going to say, you know, we're not Indian Muslims. Yeah, no, take that part out, bro. I don't want to.
Why?
Yeah, I don't want to cause any.
No. We're violent thugs. Remember, they're the peaceful. You know, Gujarati Deobandis are very peaceful. Why?
I want to give a message to the younger generation who are going to be there as well.
Please.
Is that some advice? First of all, do not bring any weapons to this protest. No knives.
Look at that. Now, this is like...
They're having to tell their people that, of course.
I mean, do you know what, Brian? I have done at least 100 demos, right? Organised loads of them.
Yeah.
Been involved in all of them. I have never once put out a video saying, don't bring any knives or guns, okay?
You know, on that 2016 trip, you remember the famous picture of Tommy in the tank?
Yeah.
So he climbs up on the tank, and the M16 is lying on his feet.
I've had enough of watching Muslims. I can't watch any more of them.
Enough.
We'll put them in a box.
And I said to him, pick up the gun. And he looked at me like I was a fucking space alien. Because it's like British people, most of you, if you haven't served in the army, you've never seen a gun.
I live in Northern Ireland, so everybody had guns when I first came over here. But that's a different...
But the English, it's like people like Tommy, and he's a violent football thug, as I'm told all the time, but he'd never seen a gun. I don't think he'd ever picked one up. And so I tell him, pick up the gun. And I look at the tank, because the tank commander is like smoking a cigarette, sitting on his turret behind him. And I like look at the tank guy, and the tank guy just like, you know, it's like whatever. And so Tommy reaches down and picks up, and I can see the gun's got like an orange plug in the breech. You know, it's like there's nothing nothing gonna happen. Where the bullet would be is a big orange plastic thing with a string. And so he picks it up and he's holding it in that famous picture. He's holding it. He's like, he doesn't have his hand on the thing. He's not like, he's holding it like from above. It's like, ooh, I'm scared of this thing. And it's also away from him.
Do you know what? That's a really serious issue. And the issue is a lot of these Islamists do know how to use firearms. And they do have guns.
And they've been trained.
What he's saying there is, we've got guns, but we're not going to bring them on the 6.
Because out in Kashmir and in the tribal areas, they go back there at home and they get given an AK-47 and 50 rounds and
Brian,
they know what it feels like.
This is the truth, right? When I was in school, secondary school, 1982, the Afghan war was on with the Russians. There was lads in my school, Pakistani lads, that were telling me in class, "Oh yeah, Uncle Abdul, he's away at the minute. He's doing a bit of jihad," and I'm like, "What? Oh yeah, he's out fighting the Russians." I was like, "Really? Flipping good on him, go for it." Because back then I didn't realize. I was like, the Russians are going to be communists. Yeah, brilliant,
the Red Scare. It was the Red Dawn. It was
Uncle Abdul, cousin Asif. They were all out there. That was in the 1980s. These people know how to do jihad. They've done it all over the world.
1400 years.
Well, yeah, 1400 years. Yeah.
The only thing that's changed is the tools. They'll always use modern weapons.
And the difference between Israel and the UK is, I see all these idiots on social media. Let's have a civil war. Really? Let's see how that goes for you. We ain't ready for a civil war. We would get our asses kicked because the government would be on their side. The sneaky beakies would all take their side. The world would take their side, and they've got guns. Now, I'm not a coward, but I think we do. I think we've got some ways to defeat them. But actually, having a violent confrontation with lots of Muslims is probably not a good idea.
Well, I mean, the fact that he said in that clip, "Don't bring guns," that means he knows that some of them have guns.
There's another clip that's more sinister, but I'll not play it tonight. We'll do that if we do another video. I can't watch too much of them because I've been watching these guys all day and just clipping the videos. You know what it's like, Brian? It takes ages to get those clips and get them right. And I'm having to watch these things over and over again. I'm like, oh man. I know. Because do you know what you do? You kind of go, I'll actually just hide under my pillow and pretend it's not happening. You go through, even those that are involved in counter jihad, you go, do you know what? I'll just forget about all that for a while. But then you get drawn back and back and back. What do we do? What do you think we do in England? What do we do in England? What's the solution?
Okay, this is going to be the last topic.
This is the end of it.
Okay.
Then you can go, Brad.
Yes. Fine. What I want you to do, actually, and what I want people to learn from Tommy's trip to Israel is what Israel does right. And I don't mean flattening Gaza. I mean having an idea of what your nation is and what your culture is and who you are. What it is to be English, British. British is a construct, but English, Welsh, Scottish, Northern Irish, Protestant. To know who you are and to have expectations for people who come and live there. And that doesn't mean that they have to all be white. It just means they have to respect the culture that they've come into. That means that it doesn't mean they have to watch cricket, but they have to not disrupt cricket. It's like, be who you are. Force people to learn the language. Stop pandering. Now, I live here. My Hebrew's pretty crap. I get by. I have to phone the phone company sometimes. I need my wife to help me. There's the languages on the phone is press 1 for Hebrew, 2 for Arabic, and now it's 3 for Russian, and if you're lucky, 4 for English. But we learn all the kids learn Hebrew. It's a unifying thing. You've got to do that. You can't have parts of Birmingham or Blackburn or wherever where a third of the women can't speak English. You can't do that. You can't allow that. And you must say what the minimum levels of Britishness and what that means in each of the areas. And you've got to try somehow to find your own culture. I think the church is part of that. I think religion is important. 100%. I think that there are people who can sort of go without religion or the sort of firm moral background that religion gives you, but they're rarer than most people think. And that religion done right, and I think Christianity is, Christianity is definitely a child of Judaism.
course.
The
Jesus was a
God,
Jew.
Jesus was a Jew, and the God of the Christian Bible is very similar to the God of the Old Testament. It's softened at the edges, and you tell yourselves, and you make mistakes about killing versus murder, and then you have to come up with things like just war. I'm not interested in criticizing Christian theology where it differs from Judaism, because the broad thrust of it, you've got the 10 Commandments, you've got honor thy God, you've got the one about not killing, not murdering is linked to honoring God. These are foundations of our thing, of our shared civilization, and Islam is the inversion. Islam is all about differences. It's all about why Muslims are the most best, the highest, and God made Islam the best nation, which is in the Cairo Declaration of Human Rights in Islam, which the UN has allowed them to adopt. It's all about discriminatory things, whereas what Christianity takes from Judaism and what forms the basis of Western civilization is one law for all. Do not make different laws. And all of this DEI stuff comes as a deviation. It says, oh, well, we're going to treat these people a little bit differently because we have to give them a leg up because they've been oppressed. That's all counter to the Christian Bible and to the Hebrew Bible. Find those things again.
And even at the most basic level, that we're made in the image of God. Jews believe that, Christians believe that, Muslims don't, because you can't be made in the image of God. Because
correct, and Jews think about Christianity far less than you realize. Okay, Jews in Israel are taught nothing about Christianity. I think it's a failing. I mean, we just literally ignore it. I mean, there's all this nonsense that comes from the far right that we spit on. It's like nobody actually cares. It's like, I tell you, we only care about one thing, which we have a law against, which is not allowed to proselytize Christianity to Jews in Israel. I don't think we need a law for that. It's not really enforced, I think it comes from a place of insecurity that we have moved beyond. And I don't think we should be insecure about it. It's like, okay, but the way Israel looks after all the Christian sites and stuff.
If a Jew becomes a Christian, he's not punished for becoming a Christian, is he?
No, of course not. We don't have.
I've got Messianic Jewish friends. I mean, one guy I meet every week for a prayer meeting. He's Jewish, and he converted to Christianity 2 years ago, and he did it because he read Psalm 22, Isaiah 53, and he went, "Oh,
okay,
actually,
all right,
yeah, that's Christianity." That's the crop.
And I've got two Christian friends who converted to Judaism, which is far harder, takes many years. One of whom actually studied theology at university, and at the end he decided, I don't want to be Catholic anymore. I'm going to be Jewish. And it's like, I don't. We Jews accept converts who do it properly because of Ruth, the Book of Ruth. Ruth was a convert, and so that's the template for why proper Orthodox conversions, you suddenly become Jew. And like, I have this fight all the time because I call myself, an indigenous. My Twitter bio gets the left completely. They hate it. Indigenous rights activist, decolonizer, Zionist. They like all those words. Don't. But that's what we are. I'm decolonizing myself. I'm coming back to where I'm indigenous. And Ruth, what they don't understand is that Jews are the tribe, and we get to decide who is a Jew. Okay. And once we've decided you're a Jew, suddenly you are an indigenous person in Israel in the way that no Muslim will ever be, because Islam didn't happen here. It doesn't come from here. It's always an invader.
But also, Brian, sorry to cut across you, but also in Christianity and Judaism, if you leave the religion, you're not going to get killed.
No, there's no
Islam, Hotel California,
Total. You can check out. You can never leave.
Yeah.
But what happens here in Israel is like we've got, and Tommy did a great interview with an Aramaic. Did he call himself Aramaic or?
He was Aramaic Christian. Aramaic Christian down near the border with Lebanon.
Great interview with him. And right at the end, in fact, I keep meaning to tell these guys he's got to crop that at the end. At the end, he says in Aramaic, and he says the Lord's Prayer.
Yeah.
And I was
My
listening to
Jewish
it,
friend
and I
does
was,
that. My Jewish friend says the Lord's Prayer in Aramaic. It's incredible because that's the same tongue Jesus said it in. You know?
I had never heard it, and I heard it, and I don't know Aramaic, but I was listening to it, and I was hearing, and I kind of understood, because I grew up in English public school. You know, Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, and thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. I know it. And then I'm listening to this in Aramaic on Tommy's thing, and I'm like, that's definitely Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. And it's like
in the language that Jesus spoke.
In the language that Jesus spoke
in
the Galilee where he
Jesus
was.
Walked.
And that's, it's like the best thing ever is waking up on the shores of the Kinneret and going for a stroll in the morning.
Man, brilliant. Brian, it's been an absolute pleasure, my friend. And I knew we wouldn't do it in an hour, right?
I know.
We're an hour and 45 minutes in. And that was me being quiet and subdued and not talking much, Brian. If I was
I never let anyone get a word in edgeways. That's me.
It's great. No, but it was great because the information that you brought, I mean, there's no point in me talking about stuff that only you know about, Brian. It's better me just keep my mouth shut and let you rattle on, you know what I mean? Because it was absolutely, you've given insights there that I didn't know about the war, about what's been going on. And again, I think when it comes to fighting radical Islam, I think Israel's still got a lot to learn, but I think you can probably teach people if people start listening to what you're saying about Islam and Muhammad's Quran.
My son works in a bookshop in Israel.
Yeah.
And I asked him, do you have a copy of the Quran in Hebrew?
Yeah.
No. I think that's catastrophic. And I'm trying to fix that. I actually want this one with the forward translated. It's like we got to learn about the Quran. All the hostages. Last thing I'll say, all the hostages came back from almost what they wanted. They tried to convert all of them, and most of them came back, and they now speak Arabic.
Wow.
Because 2 years with nothing else to do, and they learned Arabic. But so many of them didn't speak Arabic because we just, which we need. We have to understand them. You've got to listen.
And again, if we do this again, Brian, I'd love to hear some of the stories of those hostages. If you've got any insights on those, because I mean, some of the stuff I've seen. One of the guys was an SAS, the equivalent of the SAS in Israel that survived.
He was at NVIDIA. He worked for NVIDIA, and it was kept really quiet.
Yeah.
And like, I mean, the woman Emily Damari who lost her fingers, she's gay now. That never came out.
No, because
it's so hard in Israel to imagine that we all managed to keep our mouths shut.
Because I don't want to stereotype, but any Jewish people I know, I can talk a lot, Brian, but
But so there's all these stories, like, they didn't know that he was like from this unbelievable unit, and she was gay, and it's like,
not the girlfriend. The girlfriend wasn't good. His girlfriend.
No. There's another. No. Emily Damari, who's she lost.
Oh,
a couple
yes,
of fingers.
I know what you mean. Yes.
Yeah. And but they were kept, some of them, in such conditions that's like just medieval torture.
Worse.
Is the only thing. I mean, it was crushingly evil.
Those people are going to need so much help and love and care. But again, I mean, that's where you've got a community, and I think the other thing is, Brian, that we need to do in England. We need to build community. It needs to be built around church. It needs to be built around patriotism. And I think we've got to do it with something like the Unite the Kingdom movement and other things, because the government ain't coming to help unless we get Advance UK as a into government at the next election. We're still going to be on this trajectory, because Farage doesn't get Islam. He's terrified of it.
Farage, that's a whole nother story, is what I know about Farage from 15 years ago. So anyway, let's do it all
again. Let's talk again soon. Brian, thanks for coming on. Really appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Guys, everybody in the comments, share this. It needs to get a lot of views, because it's been one of those ones that you do the interview and you go, that was well worthwhile. Thanks again, Brian.
Okay.
Man.
Bye.
Okay, see you soon, guys. Bye.